What if the most unsettling prophecies about our future were not warnings of our final days, but were instead the secret blueprints for our true beginning? In the moments that follow, we will move beyond fear. We will decode Edgar Cayce's vision of the Great Rupture to uncover its hidden message of empowerment, giving you a map to navigate the coming chaos with profound clarity. First, consider this. Have you ever felt our world is on the brink of a monumental shift? A deep, unnamed tremor just beneath the surface of everyday life. That tremor you feel is not merely anxiety. It is the response of a soul that is paying attention, a deep knowing that the world is moving out of alignment. To understand the prophecy of this great shift, we must first understand the prophet, not as a mystical figure from a distant past, but as a man whose life was a testament to a profound and unsettling mystery. Edgar Cayce was not a guru. He was a photographer, a Sunday school teacher, and a devout Christian from rural Kentucky. He possessed no medical training, yet in a self-induced trance, he could diagnose complex illnesses in people he had never met, sometimes hundreds of miles away, prescribing treatments that often led to remarkable cures. This wasn't a parlor trick, it's a legacy documented in thousands of stenographer-recorded readings. His accuracy in the material world was equally unnerving. Years before the Great Depression, he repeatedly warned his clients of an impending 1929 stock market crash. He foresaw the specific alliances of the Second World War long before they were forged. This wasn't guesswork, it was a consistent and baffling pattern of clarity. And here we find the paradox that gives his words such weight. The information that flowed through him often directly contradicted his own cherished Christian beliefs. He spoke of reincarnation, of ancient civilizations like Atlantis, and of a cosmic story that was far grander and more complex than his conscious mind could accept. He wrestled with this conflict his entire life, fearing his gift was from a dark source, only to be reassured that its fruits, the healing and help it provided, were the ultimate test of its origin. He was not a showman, he was a reluctant and often tormented channel. He claimed the source of this information was not his own mind, but a universal field of information, a cosmic library of every thought, deed, and potentiality. He called it the Akashic Records, or the Book of Life. This reframes his prophecies entirely. They are not absolute decrees of fate. They are a reading of our collective energy, a diagnosis of the human condition, pulled from the one place where all our secrets are stored. Perhaps the most humanizing detail of all is that Edgar Cayce remembered nothing of what he said in trance. He had to wake up and study the transcripts of his own readings, becoming the first person to grapple with the very information we now seek to understand. He was the first and most skeptical student of his own work, constantly searching, questioning, and trying to comprehend the wisdom that used him as its vessel. So when this reluctant oracle spoke of a coming great rupture, he was not delivering a fatalistic headline from the future. He was reading the results of a planetary diagnosis, a warning about a spiritual fever whose symptoms were just beginning to show. So, what did this planetary diagnosis reveal? What are the physical symptoms of this spiritual fever that Cayce saw burning through our future? His readings described visions that are deeply unsettling because they echo the anxieties of our modern world. He spoke of immense volcanic activity in the northern hemisphere, of radical climate shifts where cold lands would become tropical, and of coastlines changing dramatically. He saw lands disappearing into the ocean in the blink of an eye, while new land masses rose from the deep. But to fixate only on these images of catastrophe is to misread the diagnosis. Cayce insisted these physical events were not random acts of nature, but direct reactions to the state of human consciousness. To understand this, imagine the collective consciousness of humanity as a single, resonant musical note. In a state of health, this note is meant to be one of pure harmony, vibrating with empathy, connection, and purpose. But for centuries, and now at a rapidly accelerating rate, that note has been growing more and more dissonant. It has become warped by the jarring frequencies of fear, division, and a profound disconnection from our source. Cayce's readings suggest that the earth itself, like a perfectly tuned ancient instrument, can only endure so much of this grating dissonance. Eventually, its own strings, the tectonic plates, the ocean currents, the magnetic fields, begin to vibrate chaotically in response. The planet is not punishing us. It is simply a living body, reacting to the fever of the collective soul it carries. This perspective forces us to confront a question that sits at the very heart of our existence. Are we living on the earth as masters of a dead rock to be conquered and consumed? Or are we living with the earth as inseparable cells within a single, conscious, breathing organism? The answer we choose, not with our words but with our actions, determines whether Cayce's prophecies are a verdict handed down upon us or a mirror held up to us. And if it is a mirror, it reflects a truth we often choose to ignore. The physical chaos is merely the echo. It is the symptom, not the source. This, then, becomes the most urgent question of all. If the Great Fracture is just the symptom, what is the underlying spiritual disease that the sleeping prophet saw with such terrifying clarity? The spiritual disease that Cayce identified is both subtle and all-encompassing. It isn't a sin or a moral failing. It is a famine, a deep gnawing famine of meaning in a world that has become bloated with empty information. His most profound prophecy was not about the shifting of continents, but about the thinning of the very fabric of purpose. He saw entire cultures and nations beginning to disappear, not through war or disaster, but through the thinning of meaning. It is a spiritual evaporation, a slow fade into irrelevance, because the soul of the collective has been starved. He pointed to the symptoms with chilling precision. He spoke of a time when scientists would begin to speak like priests, and priests like bureaucrats, a time when the institutions we once looked to for guidance would offer only dogma or empty process, but no true, living wisdom. Science would offer facts without context, and religion would offer rules without spirit. This is the world we now inhabit. We are like people dying of thirst while floating in an endless ocean of salt water. We are surrounded by limitless data, an ever-flowing fire hose of facts, opinions, and breaking news. We can access the sum of human knowledge on a device in our pocket, yet we feel a growing, desperate hunger for a single drop of wisdom that can actually nourish the soul. This famine of meaning explains the paradox of our age, that in a time of unprecedented global connectivity, we feel an epidemic of loneliness. We have 1,000 digital friends but lack a single deep connection. We have endless entertainment but suffer from a poverty of joy. We have confused the noise of information with the signal of truth, and in doing so, we have forgotten how to listen to the quiet, guiding voice within. The Great Fracture, then, is the inevitable cracking of a world built on a hollow foundation. It is the consequence of a humanity that has become technologically brilliant but spiritually bankrupt. Take a moment and feel this in your own life. Where do you feel this famine? Where do you search for answers, only to find more noise, more static, more emptiness? Recognizing that hunger is the first step toward finding real sustenance. A crisis of this magnitude, a spiritual famine so profound, cannot exist in a vacuum. Nature, and the cosmos itself, always seeks balance. For every force there is a counterforce. And so, alongside his visions of fracture, Cayce saw the emergence of a powerful healing solution. Not a technology, not a new religion, but an evolution in the very nature of human consciousness. This is not an evolution of the body, but of the soul's expression within it. Cayce saw, and his readings repeatedly described, the arrival of individuals born with innate spiritual sensitivities. People with a profound and sometimes overwhelming empathy, a sharp and unsettling intuition, and a quiet but persistent soul memory, a feeling of homesickness for a place they've never been, a deep certainty that this material world is not all there is. To understand the conflict these souls are born into, we must look to the heart of Cayce's cosmology. He described a timeless struggle not between good and evil, but between two fundamental intentions. On one side are the sons of the law of one, souls whose primary drive is service, unity, and the recognition that all life flows from a single divine source. On the other are the sons of Belial, souls who champion the illusion of separation, seeking power, self-gratification, and the control of the material world above all else. The Great Fracture is the modern battleground for this ancient conflict, and the emergence of this new sensitive consciousness marks the return of the law of one's influence on a massive scale. But this rising light inevitably attracts the attention of the shadow. Cayce foresaw that this evolution would face a fierce and systematic resistance, unfolding in three distinct phases. First, ridicule. These sensitive individuals would be dismissed and pathologized, their intuition labeled as fantasy, their empathy as emotional instability, their spiritual perceptions as delusion. Second, isolation. As this consciousness becomes more common, systems would be created to manage it, not to nurture it. Under the guise of science or medicine, its symptoms would be treated, its sensitivities numbed, its connection to the unseen systematically severed. And third, the most subtle of all, temptation. Those who could not be ridiculed or isolated would be offered a place within the system. They would be offered power, wealth, and recognition, but the price would be the commodification of their spirit, the abandonment of their soul's true purpose in exchange for worldly success. If you have ever felt too sensitive for this world, if your deepest perceptions have been dismissed as mere imagination, if you feel a profound calling that society does not seem to value or even recognize, you may not be broken or maladjusted. You may be a pioneer, and every pioneer faces the fierce resistance of the wild and untamed frontier they dare to cross. So here we stand, at the intersection of a great crisis and a silent evolution. We feel the external tremors of the Great Fracture, we suffer the internal ache of the famine of meaning, and we witness the birth of a new sensitive consciousness struggling to find its voice. How do these pieces connect? What is the mechanism that binds them together? The answer lies in the most profound and empowering revelation of Cayce's work. His vision of the future was far more complex and participatory than simple linear prediction. He saw the future not as a fixed destination, but as a vast, cosmic, quantum loom. Imagine this loom. Stretched taut upon it are the warp threads, the strong foundational strings that give the entire structure its shape. These are the patterns of high probability, like the Great Fracture. They have been set in motion by the immense momentum of centuries of collective human choice, of fear, and of forgetting. They are real, powerful, and their pull is immense. But then there is the weft. The weft is the thread that is actively woven through the warp, creating the color, the texture, the final image of the tapestry. The weft is us. It is you. It is your consciousness right now. It is composed of your thoughts, your intentions, the words you choose to speak, the kindness you offer or withhold. Every time you choose to react from fear, you are weaving with a dark thread, strengthening the preset pattern of the fracture, making it bolder and more defined. But every time you consciously choose compassion over judgment, connection over separation, or courage over despair, you are introducing a brilliant, luminous thread into the loom. You are not overwriting the old pattern. You are weaving a new one directly into it. You introduce a possibility that did not exist a moment before. A single thread of light may seem insignificant, but when another joins it, and another, a new image begins to emerge. A pattern of healing begins to overlay the pattern of fracture. And this is the ultimate transformative insight. The Prophecy is not a movie we are destined to watch. It is a tapestry we are actively weaving in every single moment, whether we are conscious of it or not. The great drama is not happening to us, it is happening through us. This realization shatters the old paradigm of helplessness and fear. It replaces it with a profound and sometimes terrifying sense of responsibility. The most important question is no longer, what is going to happen? The question we must now ask ourselves in every waking moment is this: what pattern am I weaving right now? If we are the weavers at the quantum loom and our consciousness is the thread, then the most critical skill we can develop is learning to choose our thread wisely, moment by moment. How do we do this, especially when the noise of the world, the static of fear, is so deafening? We begin by understanding that your soul is constantly broadcasting. It transmits a steady, clear signal of wisdom, purpose, and love. The problem is not the transmission, it is our reception. The receiver of our conscious mind is almost always tuned to the wrong station, one that plays a constant loop of fear, doubt, and distraction. The work, then, is not to create a signal, but to calibrate our receiver, to learn to distinguish between the frequencies so we can consciously choose which one to amplify. Here is a simple practice for this calibration. Call it frequency screening. The next time you feel a wave of anxiety or face a decision clouded by confusion, do not fight the feeling. Instead, get quiet for just 1 minute and perform this inner screening. First, consciously tune your mind to channel F, the frequency of fear. For a moment, just listen to its broadcast without judgment. What is the story it's telling you? You're going to fail. You're not safe. You're not enough. Notice how this frequency feels in your body. It is a signal of contraction. Your shoulders tighten, your breath becomes shallow, your stomach clenches. This is the signature of fear. Now, with a deliberate, conscious act of will, change the channel. Tune your mind to channel W, the frequency of wisdom. Do not demand an answer. Simply create a space for it and ask quietly, what is the transmission of wisdom here? Do not expect a booming voice or a detailed plan. The signal of wisdom is often very different. It might be a single quiet word like breathe or wait or love. It might be a feeling, a sudden sense of calm, a wave of peace, a feeling of expansion in your chest. The signal of wisdom is always one of release, of opening, of softening. The purpose of this practice is not to receive magical answers to all of life's problems. It is to train yourself to recognize the physical signature of these two competing frequencies. It is to develop the unwavering discernment to know, in your very cells, the difference between the constricting static of fear and the clear, calm signal of your soul. This is how you learn to choose your thread. This is how you navigate the chaos. Edgar Cayce's prophecies, then, are not a map to our ruin. They are the diagnosis we so desperately needed to hear. They reveal the fracture in our collective soul, so that we may finally begin the work of healing it, thread by luminous thread. In the end, we discover that the blueprints for our future are not hidden in some ancient vault or a secret reading. They reside within you, waiting to be drawn with the inks of courage and consciousness. The future, it turns out, is not a destination we stumble upon in the dark. It is a masterpiece we create in the light. What stroke of light will you add to the canvas today? We wish to witness the collective artistry of this community. In the comments below, share just one thing you will do this week to consciously weave a thread of light into your corner of the world. Let us transform this space from a simple comment section into a living gallery of hope in action, a testament to the world we are creating together. Thank you for walking this path of discovery with us.